All right, well, it's a bit of an interesting day today. We've got the Wimbledon final in front of us, and Djokovic is, I don't know, he's sort of hanging in just. And we've got the Euro finals this evening. And it's also the day after someone tried to bump off Trump. So quite an interesting day.
Unpredictable
day. But we thought, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to explain the...
how wide someone tried to bump off Trump.
Yeah, exactly. Why the CIA tried to take out Trump.
Well, I think the reason we wanted to do a recording now is when we started this podcast, we didn't know where it was going to go. And we've enjoyed every single second of it, I think. I'm speaking for myself, but I think you feel the same as well. Some incredible guests along the way. And we always had a target of 21 episodes, didn't we? And the reason for that is what?
Yeah, so Hormozy, isn't it? I think he's pulled out the stat a few times that only 1% of podcasts make it beyond 21 episodes. And so our aim since starting the beginning of this podcast was to get past that number. And I think obviously we've enjoyed it so much that, I mean, I think obviously it's easily let's say a kind of a target that I think we got rid of fairly quickly. But you know,
we've got one ready to go tomorrow. So unless you get bumped up after this, we should be all right.
I might. You never know. So we're trying to buck the trend of most people who start a podcast, and I think we've had so many great conversations and such a great time doing it that I don't think 21 is going to be a struggle. Well, it hasn't been a struggle, has it?
No, and I think it's testament to the people we've had on and the conversations that we've had. And when we first started, I did wonder, we had a few ideas of some of the guests we wanted to get on. And, we thought we'd have some great conversations, but we didn't have everything mapped out. And obviously through the journey, through the networking, we've had people introduce us to other people, and we've had people come on our radar that we've either bumped into or been suggested that we've got on to record an episode, and just incredibly insightful stories and wisdom, and all I think are very, very different, the people that we've had on. And I've enjoyed every single second that we've sat in front of someone and chatted to them. And I guess the purpose of this really is just to have a little look back at some of the conversations we've had. And at the end of it, we thought it might be quite nice to capture. We always ask the same question at the end of every episode, if the regular listeners will know, and that is, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self? And there's been some fantastic, phenomenal answers that have all been very different, maybe with some kind of similarities of the themes, but it'd be nice to just have a look back through those at the end of this. So that's really what this special is about, really, isn't it? Celebrating 21 episodes, looking forward. We've got plenty more in the tank and plenty more lined up, and I'm really excited about some of the stuff we've got coming, and who knows what we'll have further down the line, but we're going to keep going. And our mantra's always been, if one person gets something out of it, then it's worth doing. And, if you look at the countries that we've been listened in already, it's crazy. It's like 37 countries already, something like that. Thousands of listens. I never thought for 1 minute we'd even get that far.
Well, I think it reminds me of that stat, where imagine if you had all of our unique listeners in a room, and we'd had the chance to reach that many people. 3 break points down for Jocko in the third, and I think I think even just some of the comments we've had and some of the feedback we've obviously helped a lot more than just one person. But I think it's an interesting point to reflect as well, because it's I've been thinking about this a lot, about the nature of the podcast. What are we trying to achieve with it, which has always been clear, but also how do we continue in the right way? So I think this reflection is as much, I think, useful for us as much as it is hopefully for people listening, and some of our reflections.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess we started out. I remember the first time we got the mics and we sat down and we said, right, should we start talking then? And we we dribbled on for a little bit and recorded it. It felt really odd sitting in front of a microphone. And the first few were probably a little bit alien to us because we weren't really sure what we were doing. And I think in time, it feels like we've gotten a little bit better and we kind of understand how it works. And I think it was your dad that said to us after recording Richard's episode, he said, you can tell there's a genuine curiosity between the both of you. We're not just asking questions for questions' sake. If we were sat in a room with those people, we'd be asking similar questions anyway. So,
well, I think also the key is we're learning every time we talk to people.
Yeah.
You know, even if, whether they're, you know, let's say as experienced as Richard or, you know, people the same age as us, you know, I think what I've found from every conversation we've had, I've genuinely left every conversation thinking there's something I can take away from that. There's something I can learn. There's something that I can adapt to in my life from what this person's told me. I think we've been really lucky that every guest has been so insightful. And, you know, obviously it's not like we're being overly selective. You know, we're having conversations with an open mind and seeing where they go. But each one, you know, we're hearing from... You know, if you think about the one we did with Roberto, you know, I literally met him that day and had really no idea how it was going to go. And it was one of my favourite ones. Yeah. Just what a great guy. Yeah. And, you know, learned so many things about his culture and his background. And I think for me, you know, every conversation has just been, I've left thinking, wow, like I really need to be doing more, or I could be doing something different. It's been a great experience.
Really has. Yeah, I mean, he was fantastic, Roberto. It was fascinating to listen to his story. You're bumping into Jacqueline randomly at that event and inviting her on, and, you know, her story was incredible as well. I think there've been a handful of episodes where I kind of thought, I wonder if there's another way element in this story. I'm not so sure, but let's get them on anyway, because I think it'll be a fascinating conversation. And I think every single one has dropped to there's another way moment within it. And I've come away thinking, that was absolutely the right call getting them on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think almost those ones have been a pleasant surprise each time.
Yeah.
You know, where we've wondered, is it actually another way in some kind of way? But it's like there is no way. It's like every way is a different way.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. There's so many different people out there with their own unique stories and more stories to tell. And it looks like Alcaraz is going to have his own story to tell in a minute, isn't it?
Yeah, considering
4 championship points.
Yeah, considering Djokovic can't seem to get a volley over the net.
No. It's been incredible. And the other thing as well, from so many different backgrounds and different stories and different areas, be it sport, be it travel, business, you know, we've heard some, fantastic stories. If you think back to our very first, Mr. Paul Smith, Dead Man to Iron Man, I mean, wow, that story. We knew that story anyway, because obviously he's a friend of ours. And we both read the book. But just hearing how he tackled that diagnosis and how...
I think, first of all, just before that, I think what was so lovely of Paul as well is he was the first one we spoke to about the concept. Yeah. And he was like, I could really see you guys doing that. And he sort of looked at me like he really thought that comment through, which so I think we owe him a lot as well, because he sort of pushed us. I remember I think we were sat in a pub garden talking about it, and he was like, actually that you guys would nail that.
Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten about that. Maybe we owe him a pair of digital headphones.
Yeah, maybe we do.
Rather than the cup and piece of string.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst audio, that's for sure.
If he's listening, we'll have to get him back in and record another one. I think he's doing an Ironman this weekend or next week.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I saw something on socials. But yeah, what an incredible story. And like you say, the fact that he was willing to come on, even though we didn't have a product at that time, and he believed in us, you know, chatting over a beer in the pub, really gave us a stepping stone to be able to, once we had that in the tank, we could go and speak to someone else. And it became tangible then, didn't it? Because we had the episode, we snipped together the theme tune and everything else and those other bits, and we had a little, our first ever recording, which was,
and I remember how chuffed we were.
Yeah.
But no, what a great conversation. I mean, obviously, you know, pretty heavy one to start with. And obviously, you know, his story of the process he went through with the diagnosis and then the treatment. I mean, I'd never really heard a story like that.
No, not being faced with such a monumental health challenge that, you know, many would have kind of wilted in the corner, but he took it upon himself to find the toughest physical challenge out there and work his way towards it, which was incredible.
It's inspiring.
Yeah, it really was.
It was.
So that was amazing. And then we moved on to your good buddy Bruce, which I'd met him before a few times, but such a warm, radiant soul is sitting in the room where we're recording the podcast. He was brilliant, wasn't he?
It was, yeah, just banging his feet and just spreading himself out and
spreading himself out.
Wow, he's just fought back from 3 break points. 3 championship points.
Not 4, as I said.
No, I didn't want to say. But yeah, no, Bruce is in Croatia at the moment. I mean, again, I think I saw Bruce a couple of weeks ago, and it's so amazing that I've known Bruce, I think, since I was about 12, and to then go through that story and see a side of him that I've never heard, or at least in not in that way. And, you know, you learn more about effectively, you know, one of your very, very best mates. And then to sort of, for him to share that story and to be so open, I think was a real privilege. And again, a great early one, I think, for our early listeners to get into, you know, a kind of a quite deep, quite open discussion.
Well, addiction's real, isn't it? I mean, we've all known someone that have been addicted to something or other. So for him to come on and be so transparent about his struggles, what I really took away from that one, as well as getting to know Bruce, you know, quite a bit better. You know, he's such a warm, friendly guy. You know, he was so kind to me when I was doing my charity event for later that year, or earlier this year even. He was so open, and I loved the fact that he kind of went from this inward-looking, addictive state to then transitioning to helping or wanting to help, being driven to help other people, which I thought was lovely.
I can't believe Djokovic has just broken from 3 championship points down. That's nuts.
Well, he's been there and done it though, hasn't he? He's got all the experience.
Well, we started recording because it's just looked like a foregone conclusion. So
we might have to take an ad break.
I wish we had some advertisers, but still.
But Bruce, what a legend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I just continue every day to be grateful for his friendship, but also just be grateful to be close to his journey and what he's doing. Yeah. And there's some other things I'd like to share actually since it's happened, but I probably would need to check with Bruce if he's all right for me to share it. But you know, he's had some good news and some really good things happen.
Well, we'll have to get him back on.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Next time we'll have a chat.
Yeah.
I'd like that very much, yeah. And then we had the lovely Nikki on, dialing all the way from the UAE. I remember she recommended using this remote software. She says, very good. She's a radio DJ. Let's use this software. So we hooked up the line and we were just preparing the mics, getting ready. And she said, hi, chaps. I jumped out my skin and looked behind me. I thought she was in the room. It was incredible clarity because obviously being a radio DJ, she has all kits. And actually, Nikki's here at the moment. I had a drink with her last night, so she's back over at the moment, so that's lovely. And again, just such a warm, positive person. She's been everywhere, and she's had some, fascinating stories. And I love their attitude of, right, let's try something else. Let's go here. Let's do that. And they've travelled all over the world.
And it was so awesome as well, because having someone like her with experience in what we were doing, albeit, it's radio, but, you know, she was already giving us feedback on the first 2 that we'd done. And it was our first, it wasn't our first remote one, was it? Because Paul was as well. But I think after doing Bruce in person, it was then we were back to then doing a remote one. And
we had paper cup and string for Paul, and we had the polar end of the opposite.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And no, I mean, what obviously, you know Nikki much better than me, but it was just, again, for me, we were actually talking about this yesterday when we were playing snooker. I think one of the things I loved about that conversation is that in many ways they are, you know, if you met them as a family, you wouldn't think they're necessarily extraordinary people, you know, trying to sort of push the boundaries of life as such. I don't mean that with any disrespect, but actually what they're doing is incredibly brave, you know, incredibly sort of, it massively there another way, you know, to move your whole family to that, you know, which is something I dream of doing but haven't found a way of doing it yet.
Yeah.
You know, for me it's one of the more extraordinary stories in many ways.
Yeah.
You know, and brave stories.
They're so humble with it as well. They don't, like you say, they don't push it on you. They're just living their best lives. And they've had some challenging times out there. It's not been all plain sailing, but I just think good for them.
Yeah.
Their kids have had such a rich childhood of experiencing growing up in different countries, and you know, they're going to be going to the big wide world on their own in the next few years, and they'll have all that experience behind them, and a network of people from different countries. I think it's such a broad way to look at the world. I think it's fantastic.
100%. And I think, you know, it's easy, I think, for a lot of people to sort of say, "Oh, God, I wouldn't do that or put my kids through that." And I think the total opposite.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, there may be times where they're upset to leave what in inverted commas is home, but honestly, the experience and the stuff that they'll be absorbing, you know, for me, I'm you know, I was just talking to a friend of mine who will be on the podcast at some point as well. He's just about to move his family to Switzerland.
Yeah.
And again, you know, for me, there's just no downside. It might feel like it, but I just don't see the downside.
No, I mean, it's all experience that the kids will use in their lives, really, isn't it? And you know, I think it's win-win. Even if you go, I've always said, even if you go and have a terrible time and come back, you learn from that experience anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So
yeah, that was incredible, and we're lucky that Nicky was happy to come on and share her story as well. And then we had Greg on as well, Greg Gormley.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, another fascinating journey. You know, a self-confessed workaholic, you know, started multiple businesses and had some real hardship through those businesses. It's really stressful times.
Big time. It was the first time I think I got a bit choked up, actually.
You did, yeah.
Yeah,
because I think it really resonated with you, didn't it? You know, making those difficult decisions and starting a business of that nature, albeit it was a different industry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't recorded our own stories yet, which we'll be doing soon, but there's no question, you know, anybody who started a business, it's a very surreal and very unique experience. And, you know, for him to actually be doing well, and then because of circumstances and conditions he can't control, you know, to then be in that position, which really all of us fear, you know, which is being put in such a bad spot for such a prolonged period of time.
The pressure must have been immense.
I can't really imagine it. And, you know, to pull your kids out of their school, you know, to have to sell the house, you know, that takes a lot to get through.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have to say, we've only seen Greg, I think, once since that conversation, but that really stuck with me. And obviously we went for dinner afterwards, and we carried on, and it's some even more remarkable stuff. So I think what a strong character, and again, what a privilege to have that conversation.
Yeah, especially as there can't be many people who would go through something like that grave a situation from a business perspective, especially financially, and then still go on and start more companies afterwards, because things don't always go your way, but you learn from adverse situations. And he's kept going. And I was out in Miami a few weeks ago, and he was there. He's a really good guy, and he's very warm, and I enjoy spending time with him, and he's very inspiring. And obviously the accident that he went through was life-changing for him as
nuts.
Well.
Absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
great,
now obviously trying to save the planet. So and then talking of planets, that we then had Mr. Richard Beard, who's travelling. He decided pretty quickly earlier on that he wanted to travel the planet a little bit and go and see a different side to it. But it was a pleasure to meet him. What a guy!
Yeah, definitely maybe one of our slightly more abstract ones in a way, in terms of not knowing how it would go. And obviously, you know, I don't think Richard would mind me saying different generation to the other guests that we'd had, but I loved the conversation.
Yeah.
Just, you know, knowing him for so long, but sort of getting an insight into the decisions that he made at a young age, and being intentional about knowing a path that he needed and wanted. Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And
he knew pretty quickly he wanted to head over to the wilds of Canada, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
And his voice was hypnotic when he was speaking. I could listen to him all day, you know.
Just a really class act.
Yeah.
Just the way he spoke, the words he used.
The stories he told. Yeah. The growth that he'd intentionally sought after as well, you know, be it in going to language school in Palestine, or spending time with Israelis.
Such a good point.
He put himself in situations that maybe some people would shy away from, and learn from it. And it was just he oozed wisdom, didn't he? Sitting there,
he did,
and it was quite not intimidating, but I mean, being there in front of a guy that's had all that experience sitting in front of him. We were still earlier on in our podcasting days there. It's quite.
It was a new experience for sure.
And your parents were sitting there as well. It was, but I loved it, and it was a fantastic.
Well, and I think also he's just a reminder of what a zest for life and what passion is all about. And like you rightly said, the way that he approached his trip through Palestine, and the lesson that he gave, I think, to everybody listening about how you approach that, and the perspective that he gave, obviously, on that current situation, I thought was just mega. Like I said, just complete class act, and just a guy that I'm lucky to have in my life.
Yeah, I completely agree. If he's listening, if he's ever back over, we'll maybe have to get him on and talk through a few more of his stories. So I'm sure he's got a bucket load more.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then, wow, a force of nature, one of my favourite people, Tina Gill.
Yeah. I mean, I've been very lucky. Obviously, we've shared. Obviously, one of the stories we've had has been my health, and what's been so amazing because of the conversation we had, and me being lucky enough to meet Tina. We're in touch now, and we talk every week. And I didn't know at that point that I'd be sharing similar stories. Well, I don't want to, whether you can compare it or not, but at least let's say a dramatic health event. What an inspiration. And obviously we're following the ups and downs as the journey continues. But what a conversation.
I was really nervous about getting her on, because I just thought it was going to be a really tough, really difficult conversation to have. But I think you and I both came away from that feeling just energized because of the way she is, and she's a force of nature. And, the way she's tackled this thing has just been admirable. And I mean, she just lights up any room she walks into. So she certainly did that day when we were recording, didn't she? And has done ever since. I've seen her on numerous occasions since, and she always does.
Yeah.
She came along to my charity do, obviously, which is incredible.
Yeah, incredible.
And she was here a few weeks ago, wasn't she, as well? So.
She was here a few weeks ago, and also I was messaging with her yesterday, obviously after having a complete shit show of a consultation with someone, and talking to her about it and getting her support on, because for anybody listening, when you deal with a serious health condition, it's not easy navigating the NHS and the care that you get. And obviously with her experience, but also her support and being behind me, like, no, you're not wrong. This isn't right, and et cetera, et cetera. It's, when you're going through it, it's amazing to have people like her who are kind, but ballsy, direct. She's just a fantastic person. And again, thank you to this podcast for bringing the opportunity to get close to her. She's now a good friend. So yeah,
it's strange how the timing of that manifested itself as well, wasn't it? And like Kat said, sometimes these things happen for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then talking of health scares, next we had on Scott Shearer, who gave us a real incredible insight into the world of football, maybe not quite at the top echelons of the glamorous game, but he got to a very decent level, don't get me wrong, playing in the Championship, but real brutal insight into the world of football. And obviously that was the last recording we did the night before you unfortunately got taken ill, right? So that was a milestone conversation, and a very sweary conversation. And actually listening back, I think you started the floodgates with the swear.
I kicked it off.
You dropped the S-bomb fairly early on, after about half an hour, and that opened the floodgates for a lot of swearing.
No, I loved it, and what a great guy, and passionate, committed, and look, for me, especially with a son who's playing sort of, I'd say, slightly inverted commas, an elite level of football, it's about, I'm not actually sure after that discussion I even want him getting close to that level, because you learn really outside of the Premier League. It's not an easy gig.
No.
Okay, you could argue maybe if you're in the Championship and you're one of the lucky ones, but if you end up almost, and I don't think Scott would mind us saying, if you end up like a journeyman in like he was, he had, what amazing experience he's had, but it took its toll, and
but out of that came such positivity that he took those experiences and wanted to make a difference, and now he's helping people that are in the situation now because he was given poor advice during his time, and he wants to help people and use his experience, which I think again it's that kind of transition from self to others, which it's been a continuing theme throughout these conversations, but really, really fascinating conversation with Scott.
It was, and I just think what a gritty guy and hard man, in terms of in a positive way. Yeah. Just to get through all of that journey on his own, and have the ups and downs, and again, just very, very brilliant conversation with an absolute shit ton of swearing.
Yeah. I was just looking to see if that was the first episode we put the explicit symbol on, but it certainly wasn't.
Well, it certainly was the longest one we'd done. That was the other thing, is we could have gone on for years, I think.
We ended we finished recording that. Bearing in mind this is the night before you got taken ill. I'm not laughing, but
I don't think it was the actual night before. I don't think it was.
We went for a walk the next day. I don't know, maybe not. Because we didn't put it out for ages.
Okay.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. But we stopped recording, so thanks very much, and then continued to speak for another 2 hours after the recording finished.
We did.
Missing an entire Man United game, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then we were looking forward to this one for ages, and again, because you were taken ill, it took a long time. We rescheduled Chris on several occasions, but what a guy Chris Padgett is, and we kind of bumped into him locally and got chatting, heard some of his story, and then he came on and spoke so well about his background. And his story was unbelievable, really, wasn't it?
I think also what I loved about the conversation with Chris was how diligent he was and how seriously he took it. There's us, what was it, our 8th podcast, and listened to all of them, really sort of got immersed in it, and
this is the 4th championship point I was talking about.
This is the actual 4th championship point.
I just predicted it, that was all.
Yeah. Again, unbelievable story. But just what a huge, both physically and tall. He's really tall. You don't realise until you're in like that sort of room with him. What a huge character.
But I think he's a gentle giant as well, isn't
Absolutely.
he? He's just such a nice guy, and what I loved about his story was he knew quite quickly he wanted to go to university, which was backing the trend of his family in the local area.
Yeah,
he knew that he was a pretty shy guy, but he created experiences for himself and intentionally went out to say yes to stuff to try and combat that, and eventually came through it, and that ended up taking him all over the place, and some fantastic memories. And Alcaraz is Wimbledon champion
all over.
Was he age 21?
Yeah.
Do you think we'll get him on the podcast tomorrow?
Yeah, he's coming on for sure.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I think Chris is a great guy, and it's, what a story as well. The shit show of that health situation that he had. I can't many people have ever been through anything like that.
Well, again, I think what's been crazy for me is through having these podcasts and obviously meeting Chris and then obviously Tina, is that the support I've had from Chris, in terms of, because of his journey, I don't mind saying this, I reached out to him after, it was the day before the friendship group we have in common, you all went snowboarding. And I remember that evening, it was the first time I felt really quite low about the whole situation. So I reached out to him, and he's been an incredible support. And I think that comes across on the podcast, how great a guy he is, how, I think, caring but sort of strong he is. And I think that really came across. And there's so many lessons in that podcast, from just saying yes, but also from, getting through really, really quite difficult experience, which again, compared to my health journey, was very different, because his was a routine thing that turned into a nightmare. And, what a mentally strong person. And, we've obviously seen him a few times since and got even more of a flavour of that whole kind of, I'm just going to navigate life how I want to navigate it. It's really great.
And I think also out of these conversations that we're having, selfishly, we're building a network as well of people. And Chris, I feel like I know him really well from sitting and speaking to him for so long and hearing his story. And I'm always really happy to see him because I feel like I know him. And it's been great for us to help build a network. And I can see the scenes on the TV at Wimbledon. Let's hope this is the last time that Spain are celebrating today.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure there'll be keen eyes watching this Wimbledon final in Barcelona, which is probably where we see our friend Roberto.
Oh, well, I like how you tied that in. Very good.
So, you met him for the first time that morning. I met him for the first time when he came around to record, and just what a great guy.
Yeah, I remember I went to pick up Maria Victoria, who's a work colleague, and couldn't believe when I met him. I was like, who is this absolute legend from the first second that I met him? And I think in the car on the way, I was like, would you be up for a podcast? And he said yes straight away.
Yeah. And the stories, and actually my wife's listening to his episode at the moment. She'd missed that one. She missed a couple, so she's going back and she's really enjoying it.
Yeah.
She said, "Did you get any photographs of the coffee? The material that they made out of the used coffee granules?" I said, "No, I don't think we did." But again, you can just see he's one of those people that's very intentional with the direction he's going in. Trying to better himself, trying to educate himself, growth mindset. And obviously some scary heartbreak back from childhood that ended at his family going over to Spain. But I really enjoyed that. Really, really, really good guy. I enjoyed meeting him very much.
Yeah, and fantastic to get insight into different culture, but also, like you said, someone who's had, genuine hardship. I think that was, as in from a young age, and then put them into it goes to show, how you can take a positive approach to these difficult things. So, and I think, again, been speaking to him continuously since and he's been helping us with some work stuff, which has been fantastic. So really, really grateful, and what a great couple as well.
I said to Nicole, I think for me, I feel like when we lived in Barcelona, we've lived in different countries, which I've well documented, I've talked about before, but you kind of meet these kind of international, just people that are a bit more zoomed out, have more of an international view on the world, and they were definitely a couple that I could imagine we'd have bumped into or got to know when we lived in Barcelona and spent some time with. They're just really, really cool. Really enjoyed meeting them a lot. And then we didn't ever intended to do any specials, but we did a special because I ran the London Marathon earlier this year, and so that was my mini ode to what it was like to run the marathon. And actually, really pleased with how that came out, because we didn't really know how it would be recording that special. But me shouting down my phone when I'm running across Tower Bridge with thousands of people screaming, I didn't know what it would sound like. But actually, it's quite. Yeah, it's quite emotive when you listen back to it. It was for me, having been there and gone through it, just listening to it back brings it all back. And having the lady on from Brain Research UK as well. And I really enjoyed it. It's quite cathartic recording that episode. And I think it'd be nice to listen back to it in time, I think, as well.
I think it was an absolutely incredible piece of whatever you call it, audio, or, I think the way that you recorded it, the vision that you had for it, and the way that, not saying I'm some sort of genius, but the way that it was executed, I think it was absolutely phenomenal. I'll be honest, I think it was way better than I expected it to be, and I think it was emotional. It was, really, obviously with the background of your parents, it was just fantastic, and obviously, okay, look, a lot of people run marathons, but I still think what an amazing achievement. A great time. But also just the positivity and the enjoyment and the gratitude that you had for the whole thing. I don't think a lot of people approach the London Marathon in that way. So I think it was great to be a passenger and to be there on the day, and then to have that let's say that piece of audio. I think it was just mega.
Yeah. Thanks, mate. I really appreciate that. Yeah, our good friend Barb's called me after he listened to it. He was driving to somewhere for a meeting and had to pull over. I said, mate, what are you doing to me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then talking of sports, more sporting theme, we had Ali Brown, who I met through the marathon because we got a cab together down to London, and I didn't really know him that well. You know him better than I do.
Yeah.
And he came on and spoke about his work in training rowers for Team GB, which I thought, I love that. I love that, listening to his his day-to-day life and how they kind of train these elite rowers up. And what are we now? 2 weeks away from the Olympics starting. So some of his guys will be over there competing for Team GB, hoping to bring home a gold. And he kindly offered, didn't he? If we get a gold medal in the team, one of his guys, then he'll try and get one of them to come on here. I mean, if we could do that and hear all about what it's like to win gold, then wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe we could do a There's Another Way live.
Well, let's hope so. I mean, definitely, if Ali's listening, that would be great. But no, I thought it was a really great conversation, and I'll be honest with you, I saw in that conversation a side of Ali that I haven't seen before, because we talked a lot. Our sons went to the same football academy, and we chatted a lot, and it was really nice to sort of actually get real insight into his day-to-day job, and hear from him, from the horse's mouth, what a job like that entails. And for me, it's a great example of There's Another Way.
Completely.
How many people get to coach in an area that they're passionate and love. And he's just got back, hasn't he, from Spain after a month away with the team. I thought it was a great conversation, and just what a great positive guy, and again, lucky to have him in the village.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I completely agree, and I think his passion for what he does shone through in the conversation that we had, and I really enjoyed that one. And the next one was your special. I mean, we didn't think we'd be recording an episode like that when we started our journey on There's Another Way, but I can't still struggle to understand how you talk so eloquently about what you went through. As if I don't know how easy it would be for me to talk about that. But I know it was some months afterwards, but you seemed so professional to be able to just sit down and talk about the whole story like you did.
Yeah, thanks.
How did you feel about getting it out onto an episode?
Yeah, great. I'm quite an open person, so for me, it felt quite comfortable, really. I mean, I think since then there's been more ups and downs, as there are with health conditions, but I think. It's really strange. I think that one of the things about this whole thing, which people might sound is a bit of a lie, or a bit, I don't know, bit weird. But honestly, the positives I've taken from the whole journey, and actually being able to talk about it and articulate it. It's like Paul said in the very first episode. Why not me? It's why not? Why don't things happen? It's still surreal. Don't get me wrong. It's a strange thing. It's massively impacted our lives. There's no two ways about it. Even we were talking yesterday about trips in the summer, and even just down to things like our dream of moving to another country is now it's going to be a lot more complicated, if even possible. Because of transitioning into a different country's healthcare. So. It's been a journey for sure, but hopefully the conversation was useful and interesting. And look, certainly not something you expect at my age, that's for sure. So I think for me, hopefully what it showed is that even out of really shitty situations, there's a huge amount of positives that people can get through those kind of experiences. And like I said, I am, as much as I wish my health was back to normal, the positivity that I felt from being able to talk about it. Even yesterday we were talking to someone with rheumatoid arthritis who's having to now quit their job because it's got so bad.
Very young age.
Autoimmune
disease.
Exactly, another autoimmune disease. And so, I just really hope that episode helps anybody who's going through an unexpected sort of adverse event.
Yeah.
And, look, there are days where I'm pissed off about it. There's no doubt. But again, I enjoy doing it. I'm really, really glad that we had the platform in the podcast to be able to do it. It's quite cathartic. So yeah.
If someone had said to you on the 3rd of January when this happened, and you had no idea what was going on or what was wrong, or when you were first diagnosed, that 6 months later you'd be in the position that you are now in terms of the outlook and the prognosis, you'd probably take, it's been positive, hasn't it, so far, I think?
Yeah. I mean,
I know there's been ups and downs.
Yeah, just as a very brief update. So the actual strength and condition of my heart is improved. The actual disease has gone. It's not like you ever get rid of it, but it's as in it's not active. And the inflammation in my heart has gone. So basically what that should mean is there's no more damage being done. So the key now is to basically manage the damage that's already been done, which is quite a lot of scarring. There's perfusion, increased perfusion since the last conversation, and there are rhythm disturbances in my sort of day-to-day life. So as in even now, every 10 seconds there's a dodgy beat or an ectopic. So that's really what needs to be resolved. But in terms of day-to-day, I'm very grateful that I feel pretty functional. And I think what's even better is that we've got some amazing album names off the back of off the condition.
Ectopic beats,
ectopic disturbances. Ectopic burden.
Ectopic burden's a difficult second album, isn't it?
Difficult, contrived second album. Rhythm disturbances. Yeah. It's like a Chemical Brothers, like mid-90s sort of like.
You have to record an album off the back of that. Yeah. Talking of albums and rhythm and beats, so we then had. Look, by the way, I'm delighted that you and I know it's still a long way to go. But the way you are at the moment, I know it's still ups and downs, but
we're cracking on for sure.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so talking of albums, rhythm and beats, we then trudged into London for our first ever on the road. There's another way recording, didn't we? In a very cool London recording studio with a very rock and roll guest.
Absolutely. It was all a bit cool for us, wasn't it?
What a guy. Such a lovely, warm-hearted soul, wasn't he?
Amazing. Yeah, and obviously I knew that going into
Sam
it.
Hammond.
Yeah, and I knew that going into it, but obviously you didn't. And just amazing to catch up with him. We went for dinner again afterwards, didn't we? And, what a great setting, amazing experience for us to get a live recording as well of him playing his
I've
friends.
listened to that several times since. It gets better every time I hear it. And he did it all in one take.
Yeah.
It's almost perfect when you listen back to it. Yeah. And it's such an incredible song by Joe Rose. Yeah, what a version.
Yeah. But also just what a story,
Yeah.
Like reaching those heights of music, which is not easy, but also forging a career, without, I suppose you could say, it not going exactly how, when you sign a 4-album deal with Sony, you kind of expect to be sat on a beach and reveling in your success. But at the same time, what a great way to sort of traverse out of that and have an epic life and story to tell.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, and we've had lots of good feedback from that since. And I didn't think there's a scrap of an ego of him at all. Like, we went out for dinner afterwards, and he was just genuinely interested in what you've been up to and what you were doing, what I was doing. Yeah, and it's just really good guy.
Well, it's the thing we focus on quite a lot at the moment, isn't it? People who ask questions and. Certainly, just great to see someone who had genuine care in other people's situations.
Definitely. And then we moved on to the lovely Jacqueline Wigglesworth, who accidentally spilt some water on my foot when we were at an Ella Mills talk, and she came on and talked about what a story.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
I loved that recording because, again, didn't know masses about her, but kind of got a vibe that she'd be a really, really interesting listen, and she totally was. I could listen to her all day long. Yeah,
it was brilliant, and we've been in touch with her since, and and obviously recording one which is going out in a couple of weeks. Who's competing
on a similar theme.
But just what a lovely, warm, insightful woman, amazing, wise. Super wise, and just like we talk about, she's actually putting her money where her mouth is, or whatever the phrase is, and she's actually doing genuinely valuable things, and way more valuable than anything I've ever done.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I loved her story, and I think there's a lot for people to take from that.
Definitely.
I think, yeah.
Definitely. Well, it goes to show if you're not want to get into the corporate world, if you don't want to go down that typical path, you don't have to earn tons and tons of money to add value and to have purpose and to have an amazingly warm and purposeful life.
Yeah, agreed. And then we had my old friend Peter from Norway, the Good Morning Norway TV presenter. Again, I really enjoyed that conversation. I knew snippets of it, but hearing what he'd been up to, how he got into, again, so many lessons to take away from his attitude and the way he'd built that life for himself, and now finds himself presenting Good Morning TV in Norway, and some of the stories in between, like being chased down the corridor by an angry Elton John, was pretty memorable.
Still can't, after that story, I still can't get Bo Selector out of my head. But yeah, no, what a fantastic guy, really open, really open story, and I love just how, again, the different twists and turns that he experienced in his career and some of the brave decisions that he made. And I mean, look, getting to a position of being a breakfast TV presenter. I mean, and also what an amazing insight into the discipline, the structure, the intention, and the preparation. Yeah. I mean, what a nuts story in terms of, I mean, what experiences he's had.
Yeah, completely agree. Really enjoyed catching up with Peter. And then when I was chatting to Greg Gormley one day, because I speak to him every couple of weeks through work, and when he was around the time he was coming on the podcast, or I'd finished recording it, he told me about a lovely lady called Therese Nichols who started this charity, and it really resonated. He gave me a brief overview of what she was doing, and I thought, wow, we have to try and get her on. And Greg connected us, and we reached out, and to our amazement, she came back and said, well, I'm in the UK, why don't we meet up? And she came out of London to see us. She spent some time in the UK. She very much loves it over here. Came to see us here, didn't she? And talked There's Another Way Towers. And I mean, wow, I loved that episode. Just hearing, going and quitting your job and starting a charity with the sole purpose to help feed more children in the Philippines was, I mean, we talk about this a lot, but, some people get bogged down in small things that really don't matter. And she's set out, and her sole purpose is to help kids that need it. I mean, wow.
Yeah, just everything about that conversation, from the way she painted the picture at her her dinner table with her family, all the way to the journey that she's been on with that charity, and obviously now with the book. And just, again, one of those people, it's like, wow, you're really adding value to the world. And what a warm heart, that, spirit, just amazing, just being sat with her and talking to her about, just, again, we went for lunch after the podcast, and just being able to continue that conversation. It was just,
it was a privilege to meet her, wasn't it?
It really was.
I could have chatted to her all day long. She was, hanging on her every word, and she's very eloquent. And I thought that was a fantastic,
real privilege.
Yeah, she was brilliant. And then my very good friend, Mr. Noah Coburn, from who, again, you see, this it's mind-boggling, really, because I think back to when Nicole and I wanted to go and spend some time in America, and we got the Bunak booklet, and we were thumbing through and found this quaint cafe in Cape Cod, and we thought, well, that sounds quite good, let's apply there. We got the job because she recognised, she always employs international people to come and work in her cafe. She likes the Brits, but her daughter's called Celeste Nicole, and her son-in-law was called Peter, and we'd applied with Peter and Nicole, and she'd seen the names and thought, well, that's a sign, I've got to employ them. We went over and ended up meeting and working with Noah. Such a good dude. We spent hours playing tennis and, just talking music and hanging out on the beach and stuff like that. It's really, really top dude. And, obviously to hear what he's done since then, we always knew he was a switched on guy and clever, but I mean, hearing about someone that spent 5 years living in a small town in Afghanistan, studying people and understanding, really, truly immersing themselves in the culture of an area like that, not just sitting on a sun lounger in a country, experiencing it that way, was a real insight, wasn't it? I know you got a lot out of that conversation, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's not I don't think it's right to say it was one of my favourites because they've all been incredible in their own way. But, you know, as we've talked a little bit about, especially the day after that someone's tried to bump off Trump, you know, if there's one thing that maybe I'd like to do a bit more is...
Bump off Trump?
Yeah, well, is talk a little bit more frankly about some of the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And I think what I loved about the conversation with Noah, apart from him just being an absolutely awe-inspiring guy, I mean... You know, and the lessons out of that in terms of, you know, culturally what people can learn from that conversation. But, you know, I think what he shed a light on, which is incredibly unique, is the realities of our sort of geopolitics or our kind of macro political situation right now. And, you know, what an insight into, you know, one of America's forever wars and, you know, proper insight into the defense contract world, you know, how the military industrial complex operates. And again, we're not talking conspiracy theory stuff. We're talking a guy who was on the ground, immersed himself in that situation, had the balls to live in that area of the world, you know, with a completely different culture, and shed a really positive light on, you know, on a really dark place. I think for me, just, yeah, you know, we keep talking that maybe I should have a political spin-off, but, you know, that one conversation for me is, I mean, honestly, if Noah had the time, I'd fly over and continue that conversation because I want to dig into what he's learned.
Yeah, and obviously I've known him for a long time, and he's such a great guy, and hearing the bits in between was fascinating, and just the little things that you pick up on when he cited that story about just, you know, when they're conversing and he realised that actually that he wasn't a native Afghan, and you know, then his mind starts ticking. He was perceptive enough to pick up on that, and then that drove him in a different direction to go to Nepal and interview people over there. I mean, flipping heck.
Yeah, he really made me feel like what I've done with my time isn't good enough. And I don't mean that in a bad way. And I don't mean that badly to myself. It's like, look at what people are doing.
Yeah.
What are you doing with your day? And I think, without segueing too much, I think that's one of the things about this podcast is hopefully it's shining a light on what people really can do with their time.
Yeah.
You know, what a bloke.
Yeah, completely agree. I'm looking forward to catching up with him again soon, hopefully. And then your old mate, Mr. Lucas Zach, I really enjoyed this conversation. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk with such intentionality with their career, because, you know, quite quickly he'd realised he'd made a move, wasn't quite right for him, and he was already plotting the next move. And yeah, I came away from that feeling quite inadequate in terms of how you progress your career, because he's just, the way he's handled it, it's been brilliant. And he knew earlier on when he got the opportunity to be chief whatever it was at Adidas, and he thought, you know what, I'm not quite ready for that yet. And whether he regretted that decision or not, maybe he did, but yeah, just really interesting. And they followed his dream of wanting to work in sports and sports marketing, and some of the people he got to spend time with along the way. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we could have gone on a lot longer as well, but I think what a valuable insight into decision making, you know, career ups and downs and twists and turns, and just really grateful that he shared his time, you know, for someone who is running, you know, started running a business, the journey that it took to get him there. Living
in Spain, living in
absolutely,
Colombia.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, great conversation.
Yeah.
Well, if I do say so, or if we do say so ourselves.
No, I know what you mean, though. You mean the conversation that the guests enable us to have by hearing their story. You know, all we're doing is we're giving them a platform and asking, hopefully, questions that allow them to be able to tell their story. And, you know, as we've found in lots of these different episodes, people are, when they get going, it's brilliant, isn't it?
It is,
to hear them.
Absolutely.
And then we did our first outside broadcast with the lovely Timona Davis. I mean, wow, what a beacon of warmth and positivity she was.
Kat was listening to it the other day, my wife, and she said it was just one of her favourites.
Did she?
Yeah,
I've not heard her say that.
just because such warmth and positivity, and I mean, again, I can't say it was one of my favourites because I think they all have been in their own way, but it really was it was a unique experience, that conversation. That we were sat outside on the one nice day in this poxy country, but also just her warmth and sharing, you know, again, I mean, I'm watching Shogun at the moment, and
I've just started it. Yeah,
and I still can't help but think, what on earth are you doing here compared to Japan? But just what an amazing balance of culture, and such a, I keep using the same word, but such a privilege to be able to get deep into her world.
I keep using the same words as well, but no, I completely agree, and I love the way she's been here so long now. She drops in some really kind of British phrases with a Japanese accent, but I thought she was fantastic, and I got that vibe from her on the sushi party that we did online, and it was a privilege to meet her. And hear her journey, what it was like, the cultural differences of her growing up in Japan, making that bold move to come over here on the plane at such a young age, and adjusting to the culture, and from in Japan, where you kind of encouraged not to disagree or show an opinion, to stay quiet, to then being thrust into a university experience where they were being encouraged to voice an opinion. She had to make some big adjustments along the way.
It's really interesting, actually, talking about Shogun and then reflecting on that conversation. Is one of the things that comes across on that TV program, but also with what Tomono said, is that there is a very structured, hierarchical, disciplined sort of cultural way of operating, almost to the point where it's sort of over manufactured. And I think she alluded to that. And I mean, I one of my intentions, hopefully, if I can start traveling again, which I've kind of been given the clear to do, is to just get there and experience it, even if I have to go on my own, because I think, again, I love the intentionality about their culture. Maybe one of the things that I might struggle with is like, actually, guys, you don't need to take all of this so seriously, which is sort of, I think, how she came across in terms of her younger experiences. But yeah, just what an amazing representation of, I guess, both of the cultures. Yeah. And also just epic to take that leap, to start her own business.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. And then the last published episode we have at the moment, I know we've got a couple more coming, which maybe we can kind of hint at shortly, was Mr. Paul Fisher, the commentator. What a lovely guy. Lovely guy,
and just really heartwarming story, to progress through, a career that really didn't set him on fire into something which is just his absolute delight and passion. Yeah. It was just amazing.
It really is amazing, and he's taken every opportunity he's got, and just there's so many lessons to be learned from that, because he clearly admitted he wasn't a big career guy or really knew which direction he wanted to go in. But, turning up 3 hours early to make sure that he made a good impression when he got the opportunity to do what he wanted, what he really wanted to do, and he worked so hard to keep at doing is fantastic. And, he clearly loves what he does. His passion shines through. He was, had the backing of his lovely wife, and it was such a nice story, that, and to live and breathe what he does or what he loves to do on a day-to-day basis was fantastic, I think.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed that. And then tomorrow we've got, well, I say tomorrow, it'll already be live by the time this episode goes out, but we've got Mr. Christian Harris, who I really enjoyed meeting him. I listened to that. I went for a run this morning, actually, and I've got about 40 minutes left of that episode, and just listening to that one back, and hearing his story again, so different from all the others that we've done, but going over to live in Finland and bringing up kids bilingually, having a really senior job at Deezer and in digital, and some of the stories he took on TV.
Yeah, we didn't even have time to cover the rest of it. He was head of digital at O2 as well.
Was he?
Sorry, at 3. At 3, the network, yeah. So, I mean, I guess we shouldn't give too much away, but again, knowing him for a few years, what a force of nature he is. But again, just I love the way that he approaches life. Yeah. He's just maxing out on life for me. That's my biggest takeaway of that conversation.
Definitely. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then this week we recorded my good friend and old roommate, Mr. Kim Andre Kavanes from Norway. And obviously, when you listen back to it, you'll understand why we got him on. But someone that's travelled as much as he has, and just with such a positive outlook to life, even though he's had some hardship along the way, he beams. I hope it came across on the Zoom, but he just beams positivity.
Yeah. Well, it did for me. even though we were on Zoom and we didn't have the video on. It really did. So yeah.
I listened back to that one. I was laughing for most of the hour and a half or whatever it was that we were interviewing him. But
well, that will be. I'm really looking forward to that being out, and and we've got some great conversations to come. So
one I'm very excited about. Well, there's lots I'm very excited about, to be honest. But we've got an old friend of mine who flies fighter jets. I mean, God, I remember him telling me stories about hanging upside down over some country somewhere and. Me trying to program an IT system to do something, I thought, how did that go spectacularly wrong?
Absolutely. And then we've got Hell's Angel coming up as well, which I'm really excited about.
We've got an international DJ.
Yeah.
Not
me.
Yeah, great. And I think, just to conclude this little segment, I suppose, is when we started out on this journey, we didn't know how long we'd be able to. We wanted to get to 21. Would the people we could get on to interview dry up? We weren't sure, but we've still got a lot more to go. I feel like we're only scratching the surface at the moment, which is fantastic.
I feel the guests are going from strength to strength.
I do. I hope everyone's enjoying it. As we always say, I think most of the episode synopsis, I say, I hope you enjoy this as much as we did. But I genuinely mean that. We have thoroughly enjoyed every single conversation we've had so far, and I'm so excited about the more to come in the future. So
definitely
we'll keep going as long as we can. And look, we may not last forever. We may only get to who knows however many we get to. But I know full well we'll always have these to listen back to. And I'm really, really proud of what we've done so far in this body of work.
Well, I think whatever happens, we want to get to 50, right? And I'm hoping that we'll
do. You mean age or episodes?
And with us, I think. Look, we're enjoying every conversation we're having, and I think if we can get to 50 and we'll be doing another retrospective like this, I'll be really proud and no doubt wiser and better off for it.
Agreed.
I think one of the things I was going to ask you actually is what do you feel has been your biggest learning from the conversations that we've had?
That's a very good question, and you haven't prepped me for this at all. I honestly think, and I've said this before, I can't remember if I said it on our episode, I honestly think this is, certainly for me, it's an ikigai. Because I love meeting new people, I love talking to people, I love hearing stories, and this gives me and you a platform to meet new people and hear stories, and I absolutely love that. I think there's been, obviously to conclude this episode, we'll hear the guests we've had on so far and their answer to what they would go if they could go back in time and give themselves a piece of advice, what would it be? And I've been fascinated by each and every single person's response to that question because they've all been very different. I think there has been some commonality with some of the guests. I think there's clear theme of people transitioning from themselves to other people. I think that's come across quite well in a lot of the people we've spoken to. So, I think
I'll tell you what. Well, you think I've realised as we've been talking. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me has been the word intentionality or intention. And I think what I mean by that is what I've been really impressed with a lot. Christian. Maybe it's just because they're recent ones.
Yeah.
Christian and Kim Andre and. Richard, probably quite a lot. It's something I'm trying to learn how to get better at, is being more intentional with my direction. I feel that compared to a lot of people that we've spoken to, I've been somewhat a little bit more random on my path. I've been sort of more reactive as opposed to proactive. And I think, what I've been so amazed by, Noah, for example, just sort of knowing that he needed to go to the, as he called it, the stance, and I think for me that's been such a privilege to be able to learn about or see and hear about people's intentionality, about their decision making. Luke as well, Luca. So I think for me that's been my biggest takeaway is actually to sit down and be intentional about the decisions that we make, rather than just go through the kind of the motions of life and react as it happens. I think for me it's a case of actually, and it sounds so basic, but it's how do you how do you sit down and really plan a path, even if you don't end up sticking to it? It's just because all I can see out of it is good things. Is people doing really amazing, having amazing experiences and doing amazing things. And I think for me, that's been a huge learning is, how do you be more intentional? And with that, how do you be more authentic? And, being like, look, that's something I'm passionate about. That's something I want to do. I'm now going to set a path to do it. And, so even listening to this, I've set myself some new goals. I've set myself some new priorities. And I think I'm really grateful to the guests that we've had to do that rather than just sort of, I mean, okay, I've been intentional in my life. Don't get me wrong. I knew I wanted to start a company. I've done that. I'm really proud of myself that I did, and I've been really pleased with the progress. But again, it's like, okay, so what's the next thing that I want to be intentional about? And it's kind of, I think I've always been a little bit of a, even like, even with relationships, it's just been a case of, well, this feels good. Let's roll with it.
Yeah.
And again, I like that. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get rid of that, but it's a case of people see that we're meeting people who have got real conviction in what they're doing. And I think that's something that I'm really trying to adopt. And, even like trying to push the business to the next level. It's like, okay, how am I going to go and do that? How am I going to put in a plan and an intentionality about that to get from here to, it's all right. It's all well and good wanting it. Right. But it's like, we've talked a lot about things like, and this is going to sound real first world problems, but it's like, how do we, like, I'm just going to hold my hands up. I want a holiday home in Portugal. That's what I want. Right. It sounds really, oh, I bet you do, kind of thing. But it's like, no, like that for my family and for what we want out of this life, that's a huge priority, not from an egotistical perspective or a materialistic perspective, but I'm going to be intentional about how I get to that goal, and I'm going to get to that goal. And that's where you see a lot of these people who are doing those types of things. And I think that's what I'm really excited about, is like these challenges that people are taking on, but actually the intention that they're doing it with. And I think I've just got so much respect for that and the discipline that people take. If you look at Chris, PhD'd up to the eyeballs, or masters, and all these education to get him to a place. Yeah. And I think for me, I'm just like, I've really taken a lot from everyone's different stories on that point.
I agree completely. All right, should we have a listen to some of these answers then to the question, the last question?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Don't be so fucking lazy. I don't think I'd need any more than that, to be honest.
Brilliant.
There we are. Yeah, definitely.
I shall pass that on to my teenage son, Paul. I think that'll come in quite handy.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it's all boiled down to.
I think it would be listen to your heart more. Listen to your heart more. I think, some of the things I've mentioned about sitting in meditation, intuition, however you want to phrase it. Our minds and our thoughts and our fears and our emotions, can really govern what we do, and can be quite dangerous and destroying at times. So, I think, listen to your heart. Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
A bit more than I did. I was a little bit nervous, I think, on some things I haven't had the opportunity to experience, and I think I should have gone for it a bit more. Well, wasted opportunities.
It doesn't sound like you've had any wasted opportunities. I think there's a lot of people.
No, I could have joined the Navy.
Right.
I got my call to join the Navy and I didn't do it. Then I got the call to be a Butlins Redcoat and I didn't do it. So, just some things like that I've sort of regretted a bit, that I should have just grabbed, I don't know, just opportunities like that, sometimes I have been a little bit nervous to go for these things, and I think I should have just gone for it a bit more. Do you know what I mean?
It would be
get out of dentistry right now and go into biology.
Yeah.
So in other words, stop immediately doing what I was doing for expediency and doing what I love, or what I knew I loved.
I think if I met an 18-year-old me, I would say, I don't think I lived enough in that whole generation. I wish I'd done more.
In your younger years?
In my younger years. Yeah. Because I feel like I'm living my younger years now. I'm always at a bloody concert. That's ridiculous. Nearly 50 out with the 18-year-olds.
Yeah, too right.
And I think I would want to save... I mean, I'm obviously travelling now because of the diagnosis, but I would want to keep the older years for travelling more and looking at life more and being out in the nature and exploring cultures.
Genuinely, I'd just say, fuck it, enjoy everything.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Don't get too highs with the highs, don't get too lows with the lows, just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
Take the ride. Honestly, that'd be it. Just enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't change any of it, because it makes you who you are.
Of course it does, yeah.
So I would never change it. Wouldn't change anything to do with anything that's happened, because I love the way my life is now.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the person I am now, you know, whereas, so the 18-year-old me that would be shit scared of it a lot, but on the other side, really confident at times, I'd just be like, fucking just enjoy it, mate.
Yeah.
Enjoy every second.
Amazing.
It's a bit generic and maybe a bit trite, but it would be genuinely have more self-belief, have more confidence in yourself. That was the thing I struggled with for a long time when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of self-confidence. I was cripplingly shy as a child, couldn't even go into a shop to buy anything. You know, I would walk in with the best of intentions, but then I would freeze. And so it would, and that was a problem for a long time. So certainly if I went back to those kind of years, it would be, you know, have some faith in yourself, have some self-belief. And also, you know, base that on practicalities of the fact that everybody feels that way. It's just that some people are better at dealing with it than others, by which I mean everybody feels anxiety, everybody feels, you know, when they stand up in front of a group of, as you say, stand up in front of hundreds of people, everybody has that butterfly feeling. Some people are better at dealing with than others, but that doesn't mean they don't have it.
Yeah.
So believe in yourself a bit more, have a bit more confidence, because that was the thing that did lead to the say yes philosophy. It was a very brute force tactic. It forced me more and more to go into more and more situations, so I learned to deal with it. But if I was able to deal with it earlier, then I don't know, maybe my life would have been different.
Excellent question. I think study not only for your professional interest, but also for your professional development, more for your self-development. I think be open to hear your advice and be prepared, because sometimes will be good, sometimes will be tough. So just prepare for that.
Support City.
Cut! We can't edit that out.
No, I definitely don't mean that. I don't know, really. You live by your mistakes, don't you? I don't know that I've made many mistakes, but I've made a career out of my hobby. I've made a career out of my passion, and every day I go to work, I'm happy to go to work. I actually feel like I've never really worked a day in my life, because I've cheated the system, really. But I definitely know that I'm not finished yet. I want to make a bigger impact on the sport that I love and more young athletes coming through.
The best piece of advice I've ever seen was Richard Madeley, right? And there's a clip of Richard Madeley, and it said to him, "What's the best piece of advice you've been given?" And he said, it'll be fine. That's his answer. Right. And actually, the more life's really hard and really stressful and emotional, and I'm still struggling with all these things. And the more chilled out you can be, and I know not everyone can do this, the more you can just go, well, whatever, shrug your shoulders, the sort of happier you're going to be, because there's lots of things we can't control, and it's not our fault. Let's all everyone just try and be nicer to each other and try and get on, and don't waste your time on the internet, because as much we have to be on the internet. It's the world now, but like, just don't let it make you hate people you don't know.
But also, but by the way, I thought "it'll be fine" is a great.
It's actually fucking right.
It's a great phrase.
I mean, but also I'm sensitive to the fact that some people struggle so much with like anxiety and like stuff like that they can't just say it'll be fine. Right?
It's a good point, but
I can. I'm lucky I can. And Richard Madeley is a sort of he is Alan Partridge, isn't he? But the fact that he said that just made me laugh so much.
It might sound a bit predictable actually, but follow your heart.
Brilliant. I think that it's not it's not predictable. I think it's great, and I can certainly think of moments where I haven't done that. So it may be predictable, but I think it's a great way to finish.
It's clear that you've done that as well, though.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there have been moments I haven't, but yeah, overall, I've tried to, and even just trying to gets you part of the way there. So that could be the lesson to take. Just tune into every decision you have to make. What would my heart do, or what would love do? That some people say.
Well, I always tend to tell young people, maybe younger than 17 as well, like 14, 15, 16, 17, especially young people struggling a bit by either accepting who they are or figuring out what they want to do in life. Maybe they're having difficulty at school with other kids. Maybe they're not in the cool group. I always tend to tell them, just hang on. Few more years. You don't have to spend time with these idiots ever again, and just focus on what you want to do, and things will get better. I always say that, and it really does get better. So I would say to myself, have fun, and do what you want to do. I did, so I didn't have to convince my 17-year-old self that. But to other people, I would say, follow, as I said, follow your gut feeling, follow your heart. It's your life. It goes fast, and have a lot of fun along the way, because, once it's over, once you get older, you kind of look back at the fun times and think, life is also a lot about having fun and enjoying yourself as much as you can along the way, I think.
Oh, that's so good. What would that one piece of advice be? To love great and not hold back, just love great.
Well, I think one of the themes in this conversation has been about critical thinking and asking questions. And so I think I would just encourage myself to ask those hard questions, and even the small questions like we discussed, to why is there a Nepali at the U.S. Embassy? But ask yourself those questions.
Why was Victoria Nuland in Ukraine in 2014? Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Exactly. Exactly. So why are things like that? And then give yourself the patience and the time to sort of answer them and explore and try to understand that the answer might be complicated and more complicated than everyone else tells you it is. So yeah, I think that's what I might say.
Yeah, what would it be? I think probably, don't get too carried away with the highs, and don't let the knockbacks and disappointments weigh too heavy on you. Because it sounds sometimes like I took it all in my stride, but You know, some of those disappointments, they were hard to take. They really were. And, you know, obviously there's a lot of sleepless nights, and, you know, you do celebrate those wins. And, you know, you should do, and you should celebrate the wins. But, you know, just make sure you keep everything in perspective a little bit. It is just a career at the end of the day, and it's hugely important, but don't let it affect your mindset too much, and keep going. And, you know, it will come good in the end. If you put the hard work in, you persist, it will come for you in the end.
To do, I mean, so many people try to stop me. Oh, that's not for you. But, you know, just don't listen to those people who try to put you down. But I think they're just trying to ensure you're going to be okay. But at the same time, it could be, you know, daunting to deal with that kind of negativity. But obviously, when I was 18, I didn't know anything about anything. Maybe that, you know, that was a good thing. Ignorance was bliss, maybe then. But at the same time, if I could go back to when I was 18, you know, I want to tell her that actually you're living in UK many, many years later, and you have an amazing husband from Hull, and you have 2 amazing children and miniature dachshund. House is small, but, you know, I can't complain.
I'd just try every way to either go send letters out to the BBC or to any other production people wanting football commentators. If I could known at that particular point that I wanted to do it, then that's what I'd done. Or try and beg my way with my meager qualifications to try and get myself to do college and then university. But there weren't many courses doing commentary in them days. So these days you can do a specific degree in it, you see. So yeah. Probably a little bit more learning what to do. But then again, the path wouldn't have gone how I would have wanted it, would it? So all these things wouldn't have happened. So but yeah, maybe a qualification in perhaps what I'm doing would be nice.
Take risks.
Yeah.
Because life's too short not to.
Brilliant. And take a Pawn Star t-shirt in your backpack.
And marry a Finnish wife.
Great message. Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Great way to end.